EOS R or EOS R7? Which one should you buy?
This should be here. All right, good. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you're all having amazing creative days. Today we're going to be talking about two tools by Canon, the EOS R and EOS R7. Why are we comparing these two? Well, because they're priced similarly. So there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to think, I can buy the R7, but should I buy the R? And some people are going to be like, hey, I can buy the R now, but wait a minute, this new R7 looks pretty good. Which one should I buy? So we're going to talk about that in this video, and we're going to kind of look at which camera is best for who. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the specs of these cameras. I'm just going to give you my personal opinions on these cameras and who I think they're for. If you have a different opinion, obviously leave it down below and we can kind of hash it out. It's always good to talk to people who have different opinions because that's how we grow and develop and become better creators. So I welcome you to challenge me with your opinions or your thoughts, and yeah, let's learn and get better. So yeah, with that being said, let's get into this video. Okay, so the two big differences with these cameras are, I think, sensor size and frame rate. So obviously the R7 shoots with 15 frames a second or something like that. It shoots really fast, where the EOS R is slow. So if you want to spray and pray with the EOS R, I always say you're going to do a lot of praying because it sprays so slowly. So yeah, if you want to shoot anything fast, action sports, let's say soccer, football, baseball, wildlife, animals, birds, car sports, or motorsports, that kind of thing, I would say the R7 is definitely for you. I think the R7 is kind of like a bridge camera. If you want to get into like professional sports photography, you eventually want to get an R3, that kind of thing. I think the R7 is a great stepping stone towards that, so you can work on your sports portfolio or action sports portfolio with that camera. And the other advantage the R7 has for that kind of photography is the fact that it has an APS-C size sensor. So in this situation, it gives you extra reach. So you're not really looking to shoot wide angle shots in sports. Usually you want more reach. You want to get closer to your subject matter. So it's got a APS-C size sensor is a 1.6 crop, so an 85mm lens becomes like a 135. And if you want to know how to calculate that, just take your focal length of your lens. Let's say you have a 100 to 500, multiply 100 by 1.6, well, multiply 500 by 1.6, and that'll give you your new focal length range. You're welcome, math. So yeah, in those situations, I think the R7 definitely works. Where I think the R has an edge over the R7 is if you want to start going from sports to, let's say, events. If you're shooting, let's say, a wedding, for example, I think the EOS R would be a better camera for wedding photography simply because it's a full frame sensor. I don't know which sensor is going to perform better in low light. The sensor in the EOS R is from 2016. It's the sensor that was in the 5D Mark IV, which is a professional sensor. That's a workhorse camera, but it is a little older now. I've never personally had issues with the R. I've got it right here. Got this nice Helios 40 vintage lens on there. And I think the R is probably better when it comes to, if you're into vintage lens photography, I'd pick up the R over the R7. Simply because these old vintage lenses are not sharp. They have a lot of character, but they're not sharp. So if you get a full frame readout with all that detail and you shrink it down, it'll be a lot better. Now this is always like a touchy point here, but I feel like from my experience working with APS-C cameras and full frame cameras, you just get more detail out of a full frame camera. And I know people make the arguments like, hey, you know what, the APS-C has more pixels per inch and more pixel density and all that stuff. I don't think that really matters. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I think like if you want to be able to capture fine details, like you want to shoot somebody in a denim shirt and you want to be able to zoom in and see each individual string of denim in the shirt, I think full frame is for you. If you're shooting commercial photography, full frame is for you. But you know, for sports and stuff like that, APS-C is fine. It's all about the action. It's about the shot. It's not about the details and capturing the little details. And of course, if you want to get into professional commercial photography, you should move into medium format because the bigger the sensor, the more details it captures. Like you will see split hairs on people's eyelashes with a medium format camera. It is insane. You capture so much detail. But where was I going with this? Okay, wedding photography. I think wedding photography, the EOS R has the advantage because it's full frame. It should perform better in low light because you can get more light onto the sensor with the lenses, whereas the APS-C is a smaller sensor. And the other thing with full frame too is you get that nice shallow depth of field. So If you want to shoot creative photography at a wedding, like you want, let's say, the couple standing there with the background nice and soft and blurry with an 85mm, I think that's going to be a lot easier to shoot with an EOS R than it will be with an R7. And I think that just takes photos to a different level. Now, if you're not really into shooting bokeh, if you don't want that shallow depth of field, I think either camera is fine. If you want to shoot weddings, it doesn't really matter. But there's just a certain magic about getting that nice shallow depth of field. It looks cool, and I know wedding clients definitely appreciate that. So I would go for the R for that kind of thing. All right, so next up, let's talk about landscape photography, nature photography, and interior photography. So architectural type stuff. You want to capture buildings and things. I think the EOS R is definitely the better choice there. Number one, the full frame sensor picks up a lot more detail. And number two, there just aren't enough wide lenses for that APS-C format right now. So, I mean, Canon came out with some new RFS lenses, but none of them are super wide. And if you adapt, let's say, a 15-35 onto the EOS R, you've got to multiply that 15 times 1.6. And at that point, it's not really that wide of a lens anymore. So if you need to get that wide shot, the EOS R is definitely better. You got more lenses at your disposal. Plus, with the extra detail that you capture, especially for landscapes, you want to see all the little leaves on the trees, and you want to see maybe the veins in the leaves. You don't want to see like a muddy jumble of green stuff that's leaves. So in that sense, I think the EOS R would be the better choice. Now, if you want to do portrait photography, I think portrait photography kind of lines up in the same vein as, let's say, wedding photography. But it all comes down to, again, if you want that bokeh look or not. If you don't really care, I think both cameras are great. They both have eye tracking. The R7 has the same autofocus system with the Digic X processor as the R3. So apparently, from what I've been reading, it is absolutely fantastic at tracking people. And the EOS R is no slouch either. I've never had any issues with it. It doesn't sometimes focus on the eye. It focuses like the box goes around the face. But the camera is smart enough to know that it should focus on the eye part of the face, even if the box isn't around the eye. And I kind of appreciate that, because as somebody who shoots people, having a box around somebody's eyes is distracting, because you can't really gauge someone's expression. Like, eyes are so important. You want to shoot at that moment when the eye gives you that look. But if they have a box around the eye, it's frustrating because it's kind of concealing the emotion in the eye. I don't know. It's a distraction. But in any case, for portrait photography, if you want that shallow depth of field, go with full frame. If you don't really care for that, then go with the APS-C. And what else do we have? What other kind of photography do we have? We covered sports. We covered like weddings and events. We covered landscapes, architectural. We covered vintage lenses, which is kind of like my thing right now. It's like my sub hobby. Check this out. We have 2 ND filters stacked on this lens. It's a 1.5 lens, so I want to shoot in bright daylight. So I stacked 2 ND filters so that I can shoot wide open. It's fun. And yeah, for vintage photography, I think the full frame sensor is definitely better. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we covered all the bases. If I missed something, let me know in the comments below. And when it comes to video, I would definitely go with the R7. I think that's the better video camera, especially if you are a content creator. The nice thing with the R7 is when you flip out the screen like this, you have the mic jack up here and the audio, headphone jack down here. So they're not going to be in front of the screen. And that is amazing, Canon. Please do that on all your cameras going forward, because yeah, it's frustrating. I'm shooting with the R5 right now, and I can't really see the screen. In here, I think for video, the R7 is clearly the winner here. It shoots at a higher resolution than 4K, and then downsamples to 4K, which will give you a sharper image. It also shoots at 120, which the R does not. Yeah, I think when they both have good tracking, I've never had the R miss a face. Once you say track an eye, track a face, it'll track it. The R7 will probably be the same. So in terms of autofocus tracking, I think both cameras are great. The only difference with the R would be the fact that you get that full frame sensor, so you get that shallow depth of field. So if you want a shot like this one, where I'm focused on the subject matter and I'm holding it at arm's length and I'm in the background and I'm completely blurred out, if you want shots like that, then I would definitely go with the R, because it's going to be a lot harder to do that with the R7. Yeah, so for video, I think the R7 is the clear winner, and unless of course you want that shallow depth of field. So yeah, this is a fun video. Hopefully it helped you out. Hopefully it helps you decide which camera to buy. I think they're both fantastic cameras. You're not going to go wrong either way. It just, they're slightly specialized in two different directions. So depending on what kind of photography you want to create, you pick one camera or the other. Now, inevitably with a video like this, I'm going to get comments down below. People are going to ask, what camera should I buy? And I'm going to respond, I don't know. I don't know. So if you're going to ask that question, at least tell me what you want to shoot. Don't tell me what you're shooting with now. I don't care if you're shooting with a 90D or whatever, Sony, blah, blah, blah. Where you're coming from doesn't matter. It's all about where you want to go. So let me know, like, hey, I want to shoot landscapes, or hey, this is what I'm into. Which camera would be better for that kind of photography? And I'll try and give you my honest opinion down below. So yeah, go for it. Just yeah. Now let's talk about R7 versus Fuji. I mean, R7's APS-C, Fuji is kind of like the king of APS-C. And I'll be honest with you, I really like Fuji a lot. I've been playing around with the Fuji cameras and they've got me excited. I have a X-T4 sitting in my Amazon shopping cart. It's been sitting there for 6 months and I just haven't hit the buy button because there's one big problem with Fuji, and that's the continuous autofocus. Now, image quality is fantastic. The film simulations are beautiful. Like, Fuji is amazing for photography. It's just when it comes to video and continuous autofocus, if you're tracking something that's moving, Fuji is just like, what are you doing, Fuji? You know, if you like autofocus from 1995, Fuji's the one for you. But if you want like modern day cutting edge autofocus, I would stick to the R7. So I've heard a lot of people talking about, you know, why buy an R7, buy a Fuji. And the thing, the Fuji is just doesn't have that autofocus. So that's the big downside. If Fuji got their autofocus game together, I would definitely buy a Fuji camera. But if autofocus is important to you, I would stick to the R7. Alrighty, so I think we covered all the bases in this video. I think we talked about, or at least touched on everything at least a little bit. So hopefully that answers your questions, helps you figure out which camera is right for you. And of course, if you want to help out this channel, I'll have links to both cameras down below. They're affiliate links, doesn't cost you anything extra to buy anything through them, but it does give this channel a couple bucks, which helps me produce more videos like this. So if you want to help me out, buy something through an affiliate link. Thank you. But yeah, with that being said, this video is over. Thanks for watching. Any questions you have, leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Happy hunting, whatever camera you're looking for, whichever one you want. Hopefully you get it and you enjoy it, you love it, and you can create the content that your heart desires. And yeah, just have fun, man. Photography, videography is all about creating and having fun. So go out and do that. And with that being said, this video is over. Peace out. See you guys in the next one.